podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the 1905 podcast, home of the world champions, Chelsea. Each week, Joe and I bring you our unfiltered takes on the highs, the lows, and everything in between, following the Blues from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes. Chelsea 1, Sunderland 2. It all felt a bit inevitable, didn't it, as the game wore on? You feel like you've seen that game so many times in the last 2 or 3 years. Fulham last season kind of comes immediately to mind. Very similar, 1-0 up in that game, but never really in control. And they scored, obviously in that day, 2 late goals. This was certainly similar in the way it finished. Always seems to be that, I don't know, there's something about the away team attacking their own fans in the second half at Stamford Bridge that has just too many bad memories. And once that ball was pumped forward, and I'm sure Joe will talk about the defending on it from Tosin and Angela, but particularly Tosin, it was almost like, just put a tackle in. Don't let him stand on the ball. Don't let him do what he wants. And they just, good centre forward play, but Chelsea made it incredibly easy for him. And as soon as it laid back to the guy, you thought, he's going to win the game from here, and he did. Let's be fair, Chelsea didn't play well. A draw was probably about right. Certainly Chelsea didn't deserve to win the game. And as the away team, Sunderland will be absolutely delighted with how they played. It was fun for about 5 minutes, wasn't it? Great start from Chelsea with the goal from Garnacho with basically our first attack. And you kind of thought at that point, maybe today's going to be fun. We're going to really go forward and put Sunderland to the sword. They're going to have to come out and attack us. It's going to create a lot of space in behind. This could actually be a very enjoyable Saturday afternoon's work. But to be honest, I don't think we ever really played well, and certainly didn't ever look massively in control of the game. Sunderland in the first half kind of kept pressing us, kept creating half chances. And it was almost inevitable to a certain extent when the goal came. Yet again, a long throw. Obviously, it's a big trend in the Premier League this year. And you just have that feeling Chelsea are going to probably concede quite a few goals from long throws this year. There's a lot of teams who have made it a major part of their kind of a major weapon in their armoury. And Chelsea just always look vulnerable. We just don't look particularly adept at defending them. And even when we do defend them, you kind of feel like it's more luck than judgment and hoping that we can scramble the ball away or the referee gives a foul for something. So the goal felt, inevitable when it came in the first half. Chelsea kind of, I guess, actually gave us a bit of a kick up the backside, and we kind of probably finished the first half the better team. But we never really got going, did we? And I don't know, probably the performances of João Pedro and Mark Guiu kind of summed up Chelsea today. A real lack of quality and magic in the final third. Mark Guiu had 10 touches in the whole game, just didn't get in the game and was poor. And João Pedro was I would say one of his most frustrating displays in a Chelsea shirt for me. You really were looking at him today as the man to spark us into life and to do something, create something. But it felt like he spent half the time on the floor or complaining to the referee or getting into giving away fouls and 50-50 is just really frustrating. And in fact, none of the attacking players, those who started or came on, really did much to fill you with optimism. It was maybe a bit of a reality check. I said on the last pod that I didn't trust necessarily this Chelsea side yet, and they were slowly building a bit of trust from our recent results. But today has kind of reminded me of why I had that feeling in the first place, because it's always felt like a performance like this is never a million miles away. And it's the Premier League. It's just the Premier League. There's no easy games. Sunderland will not we will not be the only team that they do this to. They're going to pick up a lot of points this year. They look a decent side, certainly one of the best to have come up for a while. But it maybe just tells you where this Chelsea side are at. And we optimistically, ahead of the game, talked about putting a run together and seeing if we could close the gap to the league leaders. Not to be negative, but I think it's a reality check for where we are this season. And the fact is we will be, at best, in a fight for top four and Champions League as we were last year. You massively miss the magic and quality of Cole Palmer on a day like today, don't you? I know it's easy to say, but you really do. It really felt that was what was lacking today. And it was very frustrating to watch that last 25 minutes, wasn't it? We got around their box a lot, but you never felt we had much of a clue what to do apart from just chuck a ball in. It's the classic thing, isn't it? Chelsea have struggled to break down teams with a low block, and you sort of saw it today, I think, in its worst example. So I'll leave it there for my sort of first note on the game. Probably hear my voice, very disappointed. And yeah, not the way to kickstart your Saturday. But over to Joe, and let's hope for better.
Well, I pretty much know the title of the next Chelsea podcast from us. It's either going to be Clueless or Please Stop Playing Tosin Maresca, His Shit. Where do I begin with this? I just walked for an hour and a half because I'm actually going away tomorrow, and I just had to clear my head. Had a few things going around today, some other stuff going on. But the Chelsea result, I was really looking forward to sitting down and seeing this, enjoying it after the midweek game. I'd obviously said in the previous pod, and this hasn't really changed for me, but I sort of said that Maresca's growing on me. I kind of like the way we're playing. I feel like we're playing a little bit differently. We're not playing quite so Sabutio. One go forward, one go back, one go inside, one go left. It actually has been quite interesting the way we've played recently. I just think that was, I say 11 positions of substitutions, I know, but like 11 really poor performances, I would suggest. There were moments in the game, but you're playing Sunderland at home. You're not playing, the best teams in the world. I feel like, I don't think we actually took them for granted. I actually don't think that. It'd be very easy on here, I think, for me to come on and say that we knew we would win and we were sort of taking liberties. I don't think we did today. I just think that they lost the plot. Immediately after we conceded, I thought we lost the plot. Every cross and every shot and every pass seemed to go awry. I thought Reece James's performance in the first half was nothing short of disastrous. His on-the-ball stuff was as bad as I've seen it from him, and obviously I don't say that about Reece lightly or very often. I thought that Caicedo didn't have his greatest night, I'll be honest. I thought he was pretty poor by his standards. He still broke the play up. He still did little passes here and there. But that Caicedo effect wasn't around, and we can't rely on him, for every single minute of every single game. So that's not a dig on Caicedo. Please don't hear what I'm not saying. But it does need highlighting. The two main areas I want to focus on. Well, there's four. I won't say two, there's four. The two wingers today drove me fucking insane. Now, they did okay. This is the annoying thing. Neto, in patches, was all right. Again, we said last week that we're sort of learning to trust him. His Wolves form's coming back. He's getting at players. He's the grown-up one of the group. We've said all this stuff about him. But today, that chance at 1-1 in the second half, where all he's got to do is pass the ball behind the defender, and he's got Garnacho in 40 yards of clean space, middle of the goal, and yet he held the ball and passed it inside and made Garnacho stop, and all the defenders came back. That was a game today where you were going to score a counter-attack type of goal. The only time Sunderland were basically forward in the game, except for the goal we scored, they sat back in a block of 6 and a block of 4 and a goalkeeper and said, come and break us down. We got in behind that one and only time from a cleared ball from Garnacho from a corner or a free kick. And he gave a pass like that I thought was absolutely disgusting. But his general play was a little bit divey, rolled around on the floor a lot. You know, lots of niggly fouls unnecessarily. Then Garnacho himself, fair play, actually was a very good goal. Took his goal very well. I enjoyed that. Little step over, direct, shot on target. Under the goalkeeper, couldn't save it. Very good finish. But again, just lots of promise and nothing at the end of it. Every cross today, from just about everybody, went beyond the back post to no one. It was like, what the fuck are we doing? The only player that looked like scoring in the box was Cucurella. And this seems to be what it's come to. The other two positions I want to speak about is Mark Guiu and João Pedro. Now, Chris has mentioned Mark Guiu very quickly there. Maybe didn't play as well as we thought he might. And I know all that is true. He didn't have his best game, I won't lie. But we are relying on a young kid here who has played minutes of Premier League football, let alone games. He's just played minutes of football. So we were expecting a lot, hoping he would deliver, because the team were quite confident. But the player behind him in João Pedro, Jesus Christ, he has gone unnoticed. But man, has he gone off the boil. His all-round play has just dipped. The moment that Palmer went, he seemed to go as well. There's no flair. Again, lots of niggly fouls, pushes people over, falls on people, gets yourself booked. Lots of chat in the referee's ear. This constant nonsense has got to stop now. We paid good money for you to be a really solid foundational piece of this football team. And at the moment, you're not delivering on it. You started like an absolute rocket ship. Goal, 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 goal. And then suddenly, you're not even giving us 6 out of 10. In my opinion, he's 5 and a bit out of 10 every week at the moment. He sort of saunters round. The chance that was offside in the first half, what the fuck is he doing? It was offside. It wouldn't have counted. Who is he crossing that ball to? You are the senior man in a position 8 yards from goal and you're just off centre. Just bury the thing. But no, he looks for the pass because it's easier. No, I'm sorry. As a centre forward, we're not playing kids football here. As a centre forward, you pay 50 million quid for, and then you're a confident player, big boy, plays for Brazil. That wasn't good enough, I'm afraid. And I thought his performance was, that area of the field, the number 9, number 10 position today was really, really poor. And I don't blame Mark Guiu for that, and I don't think anybody should. And if you do, have a long look at yourself, because that kid has played, barely any football for Chelsea, let alone in the Premier League. So he needs a bit of time. Maybe an impact sub for him. Maybe that's what we need from him from the time being. Maybe not a starter, but we had to see him start to see what he had. And Maresca needs to get a really big handle on him, and he needs telling, basically, that this ain't Brighton. You don't walk around for 3 weeks and then play good every other week. You've got to come in and play well every week. And at the moment, he's not taking responsibility. I don't think he's taking responsibility. I feel like he's passing the buck a little bit. And it's all very well, who wasn't going to know that Palmer was going to get injured and the lap was going to get injured. I realise it's difficult for him up there. It is hard because you're sort of working with scraps, and he's not a number 9. But at the moment, he's shirking responsibility, and I don't like that. So he needs to work on that big time. And the red card, again, was soft. The red card he got in the Champions League against Benfica just sort of goes to show you it's petulant. Okay, we can't have that in this team anymore. As for the two centre-backs, I thought Achampong and Trev, for the most part, have played very, very well. I think Achampong has come out of the game with nothing but credit. Replaced by Tosin, who, for fuck's sake, tell me why that's happened. Because I cannot for the life of me work that out. You cannot tell me that Achampong is injured. To come off with I don't know when it was now, 10, 15 minutes to go, complete and utter pointless substitution. There's a sort of an unwritten rule in football. You don't take your centre-halves off because it ruins everything. The position I played myself, centre-backs never come off the field. As long as you've got a hole in your arse, that won't happen. But for Chelsea, for some reason, we seem really intent on spoiling what is a really hard position to get nailed down. You've suddenly got a couple of games of Trev and Achampong, and now it's like we keep bringing Tosin on to give him minutes. I don't care. This isn't the Little League. It feels like we're playing Little League. It can't happen. He's not a good football player. I wouldn't mind if we're bringing on Thiago Silva. I could understand it then. We're bringing on an absolutely bang average, middle of the road centre-back who doesn't know how to defend one-on-one. I could take you back to the goals earlier in the season, Fulham being one of other games as well, where his marking and his defensive display one-on-one is atrocious. And yet again, he comes on today to do, what was he doing for the goal? He may as well have just turned around and booted it in his own fucking net. I'm angry because I don't think we were terrible today. We weren't terrible. But for some reason, we keep shooting ourselves in the foot week after week after week after we have a good run of games. Who saw that coming? Whose bingo card was that on today? A 2-1 loss at home to Sunderland. I was getting annoyed at a 1-1 draw, quite frankly. And then, as Chris said, you saw the ball go up front. You see Tosin running after it. You think, oh, this is going to end only one way. Can't defend for shit. Just lets him do whatever he wants. He literally had about, I reckon, what felt like about 15 years. He had about 20 seconds to do whatever he wanted to do in our penalty box. Now, there's a rule in football, obviously, hold up the forward, hold him up. But you can't just let him turn inside and pass to the fucking winger coming in, or the fullback or whatever he was. Like, I mean, it's so bad, it's embarrassing. And if he's not getting whiplash for that, then I don't know what's wrong, because just so disappointing. I'm not even angry at Maresca. I'm not even angry at him. I can be annoyed that he's brought on Tosin today. I can be annoyed at that. I think the players let him down. That they've got no excuses. I think Caicedo played a half against Ajax. Forgive me, I'm doing this off the cuff. Enzo played maybe close to 90 minutes, maybe 90 minutes against Ajax, I'm not too sure. Reece didn't play. I think Cucurella played. Sanchez didn't play. Pedro didn't play. Guiu only played a half. Garnacho didn't play. No one played. They can't say they're tired. You know, I just very quickly, I've got to mention him because I should, because it's not fair, because I've mentioned other people. I've dug other people out. But Gittins, goodness gracious me. There's something wrong with him at the moment. He's had 2 moments, probably, of half-decent football in 12, 13 games of the season, including cups. I don't know what he does. I really don't know what he does. He has been a humongous, so far, disappointment. And he might argue that coming on as a sub, you know, doesn't suit him, or my confidence is low because they've brought in another player in Garnacho at the window and all that. He might say all that. I don't know if he is or not. But you watch him take someone on and get tackled, and he picks the ball up to take a throw-in, and he looks like he's never played football before in his life. He looks like he's gobsmacked. Have you ever noticed this? He looks at the camera, like looks down the camera almost, with his big wide eyes, like, oh, I don't know what to do here. What's this? That defender? I'm not used to defenders. Guess the Premier League, mate, you're going to get tackled every single time you get the ball. So you have very quickly got to get better, because we've sold, and he's been, absolutely battered, Madueke, in the press by Chelsea fans, and the media were like, oh, he's not good enough, he's no end product, or, you know, he's too selfish and he's too that. And to a degree, some of those things are true. But I'll tell you now, I would be taking Madueke 100 times out of 100 over Jamie Gittins, because the form he's showing currently, and yes, he's a young man, but we paid 56 million quid for this boy, and I'm sorry, that's not his fault. He doesn't decide the transfer fee, but Chelsea have got to have seen what this kid had. You can't be spending that amount of money not knowing he's some kind of a shoo-in. And to be frank, he has been a real disappointment, and at the moment I think he's borderline unplayable. And there's lots of players that I'd want to see come on ahead of him. Tariq George, I'd much rather see come on ahead of him at the moment. And I'm sure we've got some players in the youth team. I know there's some players coming through the ranks who I'd much rather see come on instead of Jamie Gittins at the moment, because he has been, so far, there's time to repair this, but a complete and utter disaster. Now, I'm going to try and end this note. Positively, it's difficult when I know there's hundreds of Chelsea fans listening to this going, we just lost 2-1 under Sunderland, Joe. How can you be positive? Hey, listen, I know, I get it. I've been there a million times. But do you know what I think we can do at the moment is constantly say it's the manager's fault. Okay, I think the manager in midweek has given them players nothing but rest, time, rest your body, big game at the weekend, blah, 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 home game in front of your own fans, all that stuff. And I think they failed him today. I think they let him down. And there'll be people who say that we should have done this and they should have done that. But look, I'm sorry, just defend properly, cross the ball properly, shoot properly, pass the ball properly. I don't think we did any of those things today. The basics of football today, I don't think we did. And Maurice's got to come out tonight and defend himself and defend the club and talk about, it's one step forward and two steps back, all those sorts of things. Okay, and I actually do feel a little bit sorry for him because I think he gave them players, he hasn't run them into the ground. He made them weird, that weird team in midweek against Ajax, absolutely crazy team he played, but yet he still managed to get a 5-1 win. And that's great. But Chelsea now are sucked back into the pack with everybody else. And yes, it's early days. Newcastle have lost some games and Spurs have lost some games, etc. But again, this is what we're fighting with. We win today, we're at Arsenal's arse. As it turns out, Sunderland are 2 points behind Arsenal. And we're the ones that we've got to wait for Manchester United's result and Spurs' result and Villa's result and and if they all win and Palace win, we go down to 9th or something. I mean, it's fucking absurd. I just really think the players today, and we keep saying it, they'll play someone next week. I think we've got Tottenham next week in the league. And look, I'm not going to say we're going to win or not, but if they go and win that game 4-1 or something, it's great. Yeah, brilliant, beat Spurs. That's no guarantee, by the way. But if we beat Spurs and then go and lose the next game, it doesn't mean anything. They've got to put 4 or 5 wins together and then a couple of draws and maybe 4 or 5 wins again. If you've got any aspirations of being in the top 4 consistently, and the top 4 is such a shit thing to say. We used to batter teams like Arsenal for saying, we got in the top 4 again. That's what we've become. They've got to do better. I'm sorry, they've just got to do better. It's a really long note. Do you know what? I thought this was going to be 30 seconds. It's ended up being 16 minutes, so I can only apologise for that. But do you know what? I think sometimes it's really cathartic to get some stuff out. And I've been walking for ages because I'm just in disbelief of what I've just watched. And if I'd stayed in the house, I was just gonna destroy it. I was gonna kick things. I was just so ag today for some reason. I don't know why. Sometimes you wake up in that mood, don't you? And oh God, I don't know how to finish the note, to be fair. So maybe I'll just leave it at that.
Sunday morning, and Joe, if that didn't encapsulate what it is to be a football fan, that voice note, then I don't know what is, because I could feel every feeling of pain in your voice. But I thought it was a really good summary of how we feel, really. Where do I go this morning? I've watched quite a few things back, watched a few highlights of the games yesterday. Even seeing Liverpool lose yet again couldn't cheer me up, which says something. They look terrible, by the way. They really do. Conceding goals from long throws, just like Chelsea. And, Van Dijk looking like he wouldn't even get in the Chelsea team at the moment, which is saying something. On the Chelsea game, I wanted to pick out a couple of things, because I've watched the goal again, the winning goal from Sunderland. And I think, Joe, you picked out the most damning thing, without a doubt, was the time that Brian Brobby, great name by the way, was given on the ball. It was a good 5 seconds when you look at the clock that he was basically stood on the ball waiting for support, which is just incredible in any level of football, to be sort of stood still for 5 seconds. That was, as you say, so poor from Tosin, but not just Tosin. Chalobah as well was basically just watching a front row seat, not helping and not aware of what was around him. The players are in support, of course. Reece James gets back. But again, I sort of paused it and went back and rewatched it. And again, what was damning was Chelsea, when the play was first broken down, had more men back than Sunderland, and what it really showed was a lack of real desire to get back and make sure we didn't concede. Andre Santos was slow getting back. I said Reece did get back just about, but there was no one else busting a gut to make sure we didn't concede, and Sunderland get their reward. And also, in terms of what wins Premier League games is good decision making in the final third, isn't it? But and picking the right pass and all these kind of things. And I think the incident that you talked about with Garnacho and Pedro Neto is almost the opposite of this, because to be fair to Bobby, terrible defending from Chelsea, but excellent centre forward play and an excellent finish. So perfectly laid back pass and then a really good finish into the bottom corner, giving Sanchez no chance. Chelsea have a chance to go through with that Pedro Neto ball, and it's just, again, I've watched that back, it's so bad. It's almost worse actually than you remember it in real time. He just has to play it in front of Garnacho to give Garnacho basically a one-on-one on goal. It's just so poor, and yeah, just very, very frustrating, really frustrating. I think one of the things that a lot of people are saying about the game, I saw Jason Cundy talk about this, so stealing his point here a little bit, but I think it does bear repeating, is just how passive Chelsea were once they went ahead, and the lack of urgency. And I felt this watching the game, and then looked at the stats that have gone around this morning, and Chelsea are top of the league for the number of points dropped from a winning position this season already. And it did have that feel, and it has been something that we've seen a little bit under Maresca. And again, like Joe, I don't want to blame Maresca. This is certainly not on Maresca. And maybe it's not even, it probably goes back further than just Maresca. But going ahead in games, especially at home, interestingly, and then this just feeling of like not putting the game to bed. Obviously, Brighton earlier in the season is a good example, really, because, of course, that game is remembered for the red card that came just after half-time. But in the first half, Chelsea had so much of the ball, so many half chances to go and put the game to bed, and we didn't. And as we know, when it's 1-0 in a Premier League game, the other team is always in it still. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's basically a lack of really putting the foot down, putting the hammer down and killing games off. In the Premier League, it just seems a thing that this Chelsea team just doesn't do often enough. And again, particularly at home, it really costs us. Away from home, actually, we've obviously got the Forest game, which was 3-0, West Ham 5-1. Again, both of those teams we probably played at the right time. But we did, in those games, to be fair, kill the games off fairly quickly. At home, you just know when it's 1-0, you're vulnerable. And I feel like Chelsea's lack of urgency on the ball, passing sideways, all of the stuff that we really don't like when we watch Chelsea play, that is it's on display far too much for me at the moment, and that's really frustrating. In terms of other stuff that I've picked out kind of overnight, I watched the Maresca press conference after the game. Again, to be honest, not a huge amount of real note in that the one thing he talked about was the fact that João Pedro, Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo, none of them are training every day. All are carrying kind of various knocks, which is fairly typical for top level footballers. But the fact he picked it out as a point means that there's obviously a little bit more concern with those guys. You can certainly see it with João Pedro, as you said, Joe. He looks a completely different player to the one who started his career at Chelsea, because it wasn't just his goal scoring. To be fair, I mean, his goal scoring was incredible, wasn't it, when he in his first sort of handful of games? But his general play was just so much better, and yeah, he just doesn't look on it at all. And maybe he's carrying a knock, maybe he isn't. I mean, I don't know how much that's affecting his game, but yeah, he needs to raise it considerably. But there wasn't a huge amount else really from the press conference. It was kind of a drama-free day, wasn't it, really? Often when Chelsea have lost games this season, it's been down to some sort of referee call or things like that. Obviously, we talked about this record for a while of not losing games with 11 men, only with 10 men, apart from Bayern Munich, and we can put that one out the window now because there was nothing but ourselves to blame ourselves for in this game. The other thing that was put to Maresca was basically that Chelsea were in the same position this year as they were last year in terms of points. I think going into the game we were the same as last year. We're now behind on where we were this time last year. And it just has that feeling about it, doesn't it, already this season, that we know where we're going to be. I mentioned it earlier, but you kind of feel like in the league that you can, although obviously Sunderland and Palace are riding high, you probably know where this is going to even out. It's going to be the same sort of teams going for Champions League as it was last year. We'll be in that kind of, that mix. And as Joe said, it's just not exciting, is it? That's not what we're here for. I mean, you've got to get Champions League, but you don't want to be scrambling about like we were last year, you know, with really grinding out games to try and get into it. I really hope that we'd be beyond that this year. I don't think we will be. I think that will be the case in the league. And then you're looking at the domestic cups and Champions League of where Chelsea could do well. And I do think we look like a cup team. For that of a certain generation, one of my favourite eras watching Chelsea was in the sort of mid to late 90s when we had the likes of Gianfranco Zola, Di Matteo, Vialli, all these guys coming through. And that team, almost the opposite end of this team in terms of age, that was really one that had a lot more experienced players who came in, but real big game players. But it was a team that struggled for consistency in the league, but on their day could beat anyone. And that really sets you up well for good cup runs. And I just wonder if this Chelsea team is similar. We've seen us turn up in games and look really, really good, but then struggle for consistency. And so, you know, if this season is one that, again, we can pick up a trophy and get top four, then I'll be happy. And maybe that's why the League Cup against Wolves on Wednesday night is quite important, really. Look, keep the season ticking over and see if we can put that Wembley hoodoo that we've seemed to have generated for ourselves to bed. Because I think winning a game, a final at Wembley again, having seen us lose so many in the recent years, would mean a hell of a lot, I have to say. We hope, I guess, that Delap comes back and is flying. He should be involved against Wolves, at least in some respect. It's funny how this happens, not just at Chelsea, but virtually every club. It's funny how when a player is injured, often their value goes up so much in your mind, doesn't it, and how important he could be. And it does feel like that's the case with Delap. It feels like, he's going to be the messiah who kind of gets us out of this. I think we'll have to be patient with him, but there is certainly a little bit of a lack of presence and a different sort of option going forward for us. So you hope that he comes in and can hit the ground running and get us some goals, because again, it doesn't always have to be. We saw yesterday, and we've seen a lot in the Premier League this year, that the real value of having a big centre forward in the Premier League right now is just as important as ever, I think. Talked about big Brian Brobby, but you got Mateta, obviously at Palace doing his bit. Lots of teams, if you look in the Premier League now, have a big centre forward, and I think Delap actually could have a big part to play when he comes in. Even when Palmer's fit and all these kind of things, at the moment we've seen with João Pedro, he struggled as a 9. So yeah, let's hope Delap can hit the ground running and get some goals. And yeah, let's hope that we can, as Joe said, just put another run together, really. I think what's really disappointing, and Maresca said this, is that, you know, if you don't win games, you just got to make sure you don't lose them. And I think if it had finished 1-1 yesterday, I'd have been a bit flat, but I was also sort of fairly okay with it, because I was kind of like, we didn't really deserve to win. So you take a draw and you move on and just kind of go, right, Sunderland doing well, you're playing at quite a difficult time, just move on. I think to lose the game in that manner is just really frustrating, and just kind of goes, okay, we are where we are then. But yeah, I'll hand back to Joe. Onwards and upwards, let's try and get another run together. Let's beat Wolves, and then that huge game against Spurs next week.
I suppose it's not worth going over the game too much, because we've sort of done that to death a little bit, but suppose the last thing I'd probably want to say on the game is just the disappointing factor for me was the fact that Estevao didn't play very much. And in actual fact, I thought Sunderland coped with him quite well. It was almost as if they knew that he was our danger man, our talisman. And there was a moment sort of late on in the second half, probably 85th, 86th minute from memory, and he was sort of driving without the ball towards the centre of goal, and they had two players marking him. And I thought that was really interesting. They actually decided to take him out of the game. They didn't go with, obviously someone else went to the ball clearly, but it was interesting how they decided to deal with him, was that actually if we had two players on him, even without the ball, we can actually nullify Chelsea a little bit, and that's what seemed to be the case. I think my frustration there is that why didn't he bring him off against Ajax? If he's worried about tired legs and all that crap, then why not bring him off when you're winning 4-1? It was 5-1 when Caicedo come off. You could have whacked on anybody at that point to go and run round. You know, one of the youngsters could have come on. Anything. If you wanted to give Estevao the full game, clearly they're in danger of upsetting Garnacho or Neto or whatever. At the moment, Neto seems a shoo-in to play every week, in which case you've got Jamie Gittins, Estevao and Garnacho all sort of vying for one position. Now, I know some people will say, well, they don't all play on the left. And I'm well aware of that. But that is really what's happened. Last year, Neto was getting a little bit of rotation, and now you're seeing basically him start every week. So it's almost like Garnacho didn't play against Ajax, so he gets the nod against Sunderland. And I just don't think that's the way to do it, personally. Like, Estevao's clearly on a bit. It was on a heater on a Wednesday night. He was playing brilliantly well. He was involved in everything. And even though he only scored a penalty, his all-round game, is the way he was kind of creating chances and being the last person to finish off every chance. I know that it didn't always go in, was fantastic to see. Like, you can see how good he is, but yet we're sort of, again, we're giving him 15 minutes towards the end to come and rescue us. And I just think it's not enough time. You know, now and again it will happen, it will work, but for the most part, I just think you need to give that guy way more time on the field. We've got no Cole Palmer, we know this, amongst some other key players. So why are we sort of reducing ourselves in that area of the field? You know, Bill Notte, obviously, the other day played a number 10 position against Ajax. Okay, he didn't play yesterday, but it's like we're sort of trialling other people there. Like, give him the nod there. He's fucking good enough to do it. Stop messing around. Like, just feel like we're pissing around all the time. It's like the club feel like they've got all the time in the world and they're not worried. I don't know if this is the case, but it's almost like they're saying to themselves, we'll get in the top four regardless. We will sort this out. The top four is our priority, and we will get in there. But you're leaving it all a bit too late again. You're allowing teams to come above you. You know, Spurs go above you without even playing. You know, Man United go back above you. Newcastle are right there again. You're allowing these teams to really not just sneak up on you, they've gone above you. You know, and Chris, you're right. You know, you say about Sunderland and Bournemouth and whatever. They may well revert to the mean. And Sunderland, you expect to. But teams like Bournemouth, they're getting a little bit handy in the Premier League. Brighton as well. Again, I know they lost yesterday. But there's lots of teams that are just a nuisance. And they just feel like we had these opportunities. I know people are going to say, oh, you've got Sunderland on a bad team. We can't look at it like that. Sunderland should be the ones coming to the bridge saying, bloody hell, we've got Chelsea away. We must never win here. You know, this is a almost impossible shift. But everybody comes to the bridge now and has a go at us. Every single team. You just feel like you're always in for a 95-minute battle for every single bastard ball. And it's like, come on, Chelsea. Pull your act together. And again, Chris, to make you right with the whole scoring and kind of letting teams off the hook, letting teams back into the game all the time. Like, we don't seem to go and get the first couple of goals in any game, really. I did against Forest, perhaps, but it's always like we score or concede. The main frustration for me is we've all got mates down the pub, down the football clubs or whatever it might be, and you'll be talking about a player from Chelsea, and you'll go, "You balking your team." I've got Man United fans telling me that this player and that player, they're no good. I think, you must be mad. People like Lavia and Levy would walk in their team every day and twice on Sunday. But because he doesn't play very often, it's very hard to sort of say to somebody, he's really good, you know. This kid is absolutely fantastic when he plays, but when he plays. And this is the trouble, because too many people, too many bloody injuries again. And, you know, we can't moan about injuries because that's a part of the game and it happens. But it is just so frustrating when you speak to people about players and you see them with your own eyes from other teams and you go, I wouldn't want him or that player. We've got better players than that. But on our day, sometimes, we just don't show the quality that we have. Yeah, just a real frustration for me yesterday. I'm still not really over it, I'll be honest with you. And again, I'll just rubber stamp what I said. I don't blame the manager. I do think sometimes these performances just happen. Now, obviously, we've got Wolves midweek. If Chelsea perform a bit like they did yesterday with the whole Wolves coming with a low block and we struggle to break them down, we have to start finding ways of doing it. I don't know how many years we've been saying it now, that Chelsea can't break down a low block. I mean, it's rinse and repeat, isn't it? It's anyone who has a go at us, we tend to be fine with. You know, Forest came at us last week. Obviously, Liverpool the week before that. Those teams are fine because we can get behind them. But anyone who comes and sits at the back, like they did yesterday, 6 at the back, 4 in midfield, God, it's hard to break down. But there has to be something in your Arsenal. You're talking about some of the best young talent in the world. Between them and the manager and the coaching staff, there's got to be ways in which you can get around these teams because other teams seem to manage it when we don't. But I think I'm sort of past the point of keep blaming the manager because I don't think it's solely at his feet every single time there's a loss or a draw that we don't like. I don't think we should always just be pumping it on the manager because imagine him today. Like clearly he was getting so frustrated with the way we were playing. He cannot control the way every time Neto or Garnacho got the ball, they would overhit it by 10 yards and they'd go out for a goal kick. He cannot control that. He can ask for more quality. He can make substitutions, which he did. At the end of the day, it comes down to the players. And sometimes they are to blame. And I think yesterday was one of those performances. I don't think anybody covered themselves in glory. When people say Sunderland were the better team, this does annoy me because they were not the better team. Sunderland played pretty well. They didn't try to play long. They kept it nice and short. They played out in tight spaces. And bearing in mind they've got a much lesser squad than we have, you know, and that's obvious statement. They just have. I thought as a team they did well, but were they the better team? No, of course they weren't. You know, Chelsea had far more opportunities to score. You know, created far more chances. You know, even if you class things like getting in behind them and standing crosses up. They were poor crosses, but we were in all the time. We had generally about 70% of the ball the entire game. And you got sucker punched on the counter-attack. And we've seen that a million times, but it doesn't go to say that Sunderland were the better team. They weren't the better team. They just came to the bridge and did a job. And they, sometimes you ought to get a bit lucky. They got lucky. They got their bodies in the way. They got blocks. They got deflections. The ball ran for them pretty well. By the way, no complaints that they won. Absolutely no complaints that they won the game. Not to say they deservedly won, but they won, and that's fine. But it doesn't always mean that because they come and sat back with the back 6 and a midfield 4, that somehow they deserve to win the game. They just won the game, and that's as far as it really drives me mad when I hear this. You deserve to win. Sometimes you just win, and that's what happened yesterday. But look, we go on to, is it Tuesday night against Wolves away? Again, Maresca's going to change the team around. You just know he will. And you'll see how much he's bothered by this competition, by the team he puts out there. If it's a load of 17-year-olds and a few, if you want to call it senior players, which they're not, but the senior players that we've got, then I don't think he's really up for it. If he puts out a reasonable team, then like sort of the team you've had against Ajax maybe, then yeah, there's a possibility. But Wolves away, forget where they are on the league table. It's a completely different game, cup competition. It's going to matter no odds what they're doing in the league table. As we know, any Premier League team could give you a game. Doesn't matter who you are. We've just recently played Lincoln, and then they nearly got turned over by them. So if you think that Wolves can't beat you, then you must be mad. What do I feel about the League Cup? I think Chris and I have a maybe slightly differing of opinion here. I'm not against winning the League Cup. Goodness me, it's classed as a major trophy in terms of what we have. We have the League Cup, the FA Cup, and obviously the league title. I'm just not as... I think I like the League Cup when we're doing well as a team And we're not having a terrible season by any means, but it is a little bit hit and miss at the moment. I think because there's no consistency. You know, you play a brilliant game one week, then the next week you lose. You play a brilliant game the week after, and next week you lose. I'm finding it hard to get out of the fog that I'm in when I'm watching Chelsea, because I just want them to, if they beaten Sunderland yesterday, in a weird way, not that I want to lose or go out of competitions, because you need to stay in competitions to obviously gain confidence, as we know. But I could almost be like, you know what, if we got to the quarterfinals and went out, I wouldn't really care about the League Cup. It's not, to me, I just find it a bit of a distraction sometimes, particularly if you are doing well in the league. You know, as you get further into competition, there's obviously these home and away legs and all that sort of stuff. And usually they're on a Tuesday night. If you've got the Champions League in between as well, it can be a bit of a muddle there. You never really get a rest. So if you're going to go for it, then by all means, go all out for it. Fine, I'm not worried about that. But I don't want us to be worrying about winning the League Cup if it means you finish 6th, because I don't know, that's a really poor thing to say in some ways, because winning trophies is what it's all about, and I understand that. I do get that. And maybe the frustration of me yesterday is still holding on slightly, but Chelsea are a team that do not need to be finishing 6th in the league table. And that's not to say that we will finish 6th by any means, but do you know what I mean? I don't want our eye to be taken off the ball by winning the League Cup, and then you have a really piss poor run in the league, and you kind of drift away. You lose points here and there because you've got a dodgy two-legged affair against whoever, and then you've got in between that whoever it's going to be, you know, Newcastle away and someone else in the league, and you end up dropping points there because you're concentrating on the League Cup. I just think we need to, as a club, I think, just recenter ourselves, because when Jose came, I think we get confused. When Jose came, we hadn't won. You know, we had won some stuff. Don't get me wrong, but in his eyes, it was like, this is a new team. Let's go and win something. And the league wasn't as competitive back then, so we could finish, you know, in the top 1, 2, 3 positions and win the League Cup. The league is so different now; it's so much more competitive that winning the League Cup whilst maintaining a Premier League run in the top 4 is much more difficult, I think. Anyway, I mean, partly due to the fact that our squad is so much younger and so much inexperienced than the one we had back then, and it's just what it is. You know, we're not as good at putting runs and runs of games together. And the absolute worst thing we can do at the moment is get to the League Cup final and lose and finish outside the top 4 positions, because that then just becomes a complete and utter shit season. So look, I don't think that's going to happen. I still think there's a lot to happen, a lot to shake out before the season ends. We've got a long way to go, as you know, but I think at the moment I'm still a little bit raw from it. It's understandable. I just think that not every podcast we do is going to be lovey-dovey and aren't Chelsea wonderful. And I don't think, even if they play well, sometimes there are things they not complain about by any means, but things you can sort of question or have a conversation over. But of course I want Chelsea to beat Wolves on Tuesday night. Of course I do. It's just one of those things that I just don't want us to lose focus in the league. The league is where it is at. We have to start putting some kind of consistent form together. But when you lose against Sunderland at home, you know, it really does start to drag you down when you think, oh, just on the turn or something here. We can just change this around, get a result there, we can nick a point here. Suddenly everything looks a little bit okay. But Chris made a good point about not quite trusting them yet. And obviously I said that I felt like they maybe were trustworthy. But I think for my own sanity, I want to give benefit of the doubt to the manager. I think that he's had enough grief and enough crap thrown at him in the last 18 months or whatever it's been. And I think it doesn't always help to have each and every person digging him out and saying, you know, everything he did was tactically wrong, and, you know, why did he play this player or that player? It's a lot, you know, it's a lot that happens in a game of football. And a lot goes into, Chris rightly said, there's a few players playing with injuries, minor injuries, and maybe not training midweek and things like that. So there are things we don't all know. And I don't think we can question the manager on every single decision that he makes. But there are still things that clearly that we are a little bit miffed by and peeved by. I think that's understandable. We're fans, you know, we're allowed to be a bit upset when we lose and don't play very well. But yeah, I just want to see a bit of a spark against Wolves. I mean, Liam Delap coming back, if that is true against Wolverhampton, even if it's just a substitute appearance, that's going to be a huge lift for the team. And then, as you know, I say it's an almighty game against Spurs. Our record is fantastic, as you know, but that doesn't always mean you're going to guarantee any kind of win. So, yeah, 2 big games coming up. Cup game against Wolves, and then obviously Spurs at the weekend. And goodness me, who the hell knows what's going to happen?
Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be all right.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.